I'm also so pleased to have Michael Hayes here. He's an alum of the Washington Semester Program who studied foreign policy maybe about 10 or so years ago. He's gone on to hold leadership positions with the Department of State. He's been in consulting. He's worked in government and the private sector. And his varied backgrounds also, they include a lot of his hard work and knowledge that he gained from AU, as well as his alma mater, Clark Atlanta University. He also holds degrees and he's taken classes at Columbia, Sciences Po, Oxford, and Princeton. So he stands in this a level of greatness that many of us aspire to. He has a lot of wisdom from his collective experience, and his stories from his time at Washington Semester always rivet me to my seat. I'm so honored and pleased to have Michael here today to impart some wisdom. I'm now going to pass it over to Michael for his own introduction and to give you some words of wisdom on how he made his Washington Semester Program work for him. Thank you so much, Michael.
Well, thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Can I get a thumbs up? Am I good in volume? Okay, I didn't want to be speaking and it was muted. So hello, everyone. How are you? It's so great to be here to speak. When she says that kind of this was a major kind of milestone and stepping stone in my educational and professional career, it's absolutely correct. AU and specifically the Washington Semester Program has really kind of changed the trajectory of what I was thinking. It gave me my first Washington, D.C. experience. D.C. is my favorite city in the world. And beyond that, it gave me an opportunity to work in Washington, D.C. And then go on to work at the State Department where I am now. When I was in the Washington Semester Program, I was focused on economic development. That was the vertical at the time. And we did a lot of study on regions that I was not really familiar with on the continent of Africa, specifically in South Africa. And we had a chance to go over to South Africa for a couple of weeks and really kind of pin down on some of the things that we were studying. It was a transformational experience to have that travel portion. And even beyond that, kind of in the workup to the final trip, for me to be able to speak to all of my colleagues and regain and retain that network over the years has been tremendous for me. Being able to stay in touch with the faculty and the staff at the Washington Semester Program has really been great. So I would recommend staying in touch with your cohort, getting really to having those conversations with the cohort, as well as the faculty and professors, because the recommendations are there, that network is there, and being able to kind of engage. As a result of the Washington Semester Program, I was able to work in DC for the first time. I worked at the Egyptian Embassy. And this was really an interesting experience because it kind of gave me the other side. I wasn't working for the American government. I was working with the embassy on the other side, working in Washington, DC. That was a tremendous experience to be able to learn another culture, to be able to understand foreign policy from a different perspective, and to be able to work with American companies and American NGOs and Egyptian ones as well, and kind of see the nexus between the two. This really came full circle when I decided to apply and work as a foreign service officer, is what I do now. And all those experiences, getting involved with culture and language and the type of work structures and different ways of working was a really kind of a pathway into what I'm doing now. I've been able to serve overseas in multiple capacities on the continent of Africa and in Namibia, as well as in New Delhi, India, and in Mexico. Currently, right now, I'm working with the U.S. mission to the United Nations. I'm staff assistant to Ambassador Thomas Greenfield. And this has been really an amazing experience. Long days, long hours, but but really fun. And I have to say that my experience with the Washington semester program and AU has been amazing. You did get an intro from Amy. I'm kind of giving you a tidbit here, and I'm trying to rush through it because my favorite part is being able to take questions from all of you. So please feel free to drop a question in the chat or unmute yourself, and I'm willing to take as many questions as possible so we can just kind of engage. Any questions you have on anything in terms of State Department or private sector or the program, I'm happy to answer. So please, I turn it over to you, Caleb.
Hi, Michael. I'm sure I wanted to ask because I'm actually interning at the Embassy of Egypt right now. So
Nice.
yeah, it's and
No,
I'm
Effie,
really
I said hey.
yes.
I don't know if Effie's still there. Tell her I said hey.
Yeah, Effie's still there. She's my like direct, like de facto supervisor. She's great. Yeah, I see her all the time. My question for you is like, how would you advise? Because obviously, as you know, the Egyptian embassy is very high on security, and you're very restricted in where and how you can move throughout the embassy. So, how would you advise sort of like networking and developing relationships in that environment? Because it's not really an environment as where you can move around freely and talk to people freely because you've got both the movement barrier and sometimes even the language barrier because not all of them speak very good English.
Yep, no, that's a great question. And it's something that actually I'm dealing with right now up in New York. So as a result of the pandemic and the actual infrastructure of the building, it's not one of those buildings where you can walk around and walk into someone's office. You can just say, hey, or you're just kind of in the hallway and you see someone and you're able to speak with them. I had these same types of challenges when I was working in your role. And what I did is really leaned into the people, right? So the people around me. Under the fact that Effie's even there and you have that resource, she knows everyone, that's coming and going. And being able to just express to them that you have an interest in grabbing lunch, grabbing coffee, maybe taking a walk down the street. That's really how I was able to get involved to the point that I would do lunch a couple times. During lunch, maybe they would go down to the mosque or they would go to different places. So everyone has their schedules, but finding a way to get that 10 minutes, get that 5 minutes. And at the end of those conversations, always saying, hey, would you mind introducing me to someone else, right? Would you mind introducing me to the person in the econ section? Or would you mind introducing me to the person in the political section? And then you're able to kind of build those relationships. Obviously, tech. I mean, sending an email and just, hey, do you have 5 minutes to chat? And really, and I'm sure that you've learned this, in this program, but coming prepared with one or two questions that you really want to dig deep on, your elevator speech about what you're interested in and what you're working on, and seeing what those synergies are and just kind of moving from there.
All right. Thank you.
So lean into the people. And you have a great resource in Effie. Tell her I said, hey, that connection I maintained. I mean, she wrote me a recommendation letter, I think like 3 or 4 years ago, and I was in the program over a decade ago. So those types of relationships are great to hold on to. And congratulations on your internship.
Thank you.
Who else? Are there any other hands? I don't know if Andrew.
Hi.
Hey.
So I guess the thing for me is, what is the best way to transition from industry to industry, right? Like you talk about like embassy work, but say you, as you said, you've gone on to the UN. How does that kind of transition happen? Is it something that you just actively look for? You're looking for the right people to come into contact with? Is it that you build a repertoire of skills? Like what's that process like?
Yeah, no, great question. I think it has a lot to do with what you're interested in, right? That's really been what's guided me. I don't want to give a cliche answer, but really it's kind of like, what am I passionate about at different points in my career, right? So after studying abroad and doing the Washington semester program and kind of getting into like the policy and politics side of it, I wanted to work in the private sector. I wanted to see what that was like. And I went into consulting because I thought it was an industry that was fluid. It was an industry that would require a high level of writing skills and communication speaking skills. And it was an industry that I would be able to support a lot of different types of projects. That's just my personality. I wanted to get into a job or a career that I can do a lot of different things. And I think really when you're introspective and you kind of figure out what am I into, if it's something with international affairs, fine. Then like, let's look in that. Then you're reaching out to people like me and your support staff there and saying, what type of areas should I be looking at? But I think the starting point is going to be where you are at that time, right? In terms of the skills, to your point, you have a lot of, just by being in this program and the things that you're teaching in this program, you have a lot of the skills that are going to kind of carry you out across a variety of sectors. The skill of listening when you have all these kind of speakers come in, the skill of being participating and being willing to kind of step forward and take chances. And obviously everyone's going to have that. You can read a book and study and get the knowledge, but I think it's kind of like those soft skills, being able to engage with your speakers, being able to ask questions, being willing to learn and listen, because every job that you're going into at the level that you're at, they're not going to expect you to come in and be an expert. They're going to expect someone that is willing to do the work, is a hard worker, and has great communication skills to be able to either listen or communicate or both. So don't feel like you have to be able to give a great speech or anything like that to kind of get involved. But I think it's the willingness to be curious and take that first step.
Thank you.
I want to see how many people I can see. I'm just going to call on somebody. Let's see. I see Spencer, but I also see Abigail, AJ, Alexis, Camila, Drew, Evan, anyone? Jack, John. Oh, there goes Abigail. Oh, Andrew a second time.
Well, I
Anyone
mean, if
else?
no one's taking the opportunity.
Olivia, Quinn. All right, Andrew. Let's go at it again.
Yeah. So, as someone that's also internationally minded, what's a good skill to cultivate? Something that you find yourself coming back to time and time again, something you're just constantly relying on.
Yeah, for me personally, it's been communication. The ability to communicate effectively through writing and through speech has been extremely important in every single job that I've been in. One or the other is great, both even better. To be able to do that regardless of what you're doing in the international affairs space. Now, you want to take that a step further, learning a language is great. You know, understanding different cultures is great. It's not like this is the way we do things here and that's it. You know, being willing to kind of listen and understand different cultures and a lot of you already have that experience. You come from that in your household. That is not a thing that you kind of want to hide or put to the side. That is something that you want to put out front, because those values, those things that your parents, they did because they're from a different place, like all those things are extremely valuable in the international affairs space. That's part of your experience and it's something that you should share. AJ, all right, let's see. I don't think my microphone is working, but what does it say? What is your advice on navigating work environments with difficult, big personalities? Great question. Navigating a work environment with big personalities. You know, I think the first thing is, what is my job and how can I complete my job? I think that's one. But to your point, when you're working in a job, you really want to be a great team member. And I think a lot of the times when you're working with big personalities and people, one of the ways to kind of disarm, but more so work together, is asking people how you can help. And I think Adam was mentioning that before. It's like, there are going to be times when you have a lot on your plate, but there are also going to be times when a lot of people have a lot of things on their plate or things that maybe they just can't figure out. And kind of going to people and saying, hey, you know, is there any way that I can help you out? I think that that's an excellent opportunity to not only work with someone, but to be able to spark conversation. and at the very least get their respect for them to know that they have a reliable team member to work with? Great question. Who else? If you don't want to, Spencer.
Hi.
Hey.
My question is, so I know like the word foreign service officer, like that job title, could you maybe like walk me through what that really looks like, or kind of demystify it for me? Because I know like we can look up like what to do like online with like the like government department website of like, you know, how to take the test and everything, but it seems like everyone that I talk to always has like a different thing to say about it. And I just want like maybe like your opinion on that role.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Everyone's going to have a different answer depending on what they do. So a foreign service officer, or otherwise known overseas as a United States diplomat, at the beginning and end of the day, you're a representative of the government. You're a representative of the president overseas, and you're a representative of your country. So to me, I have the greatest job in the world because I'm able to serve this nation and share my experiences as an American citizen, and push forward and amplify the policies of our administration, whatever that administration may be. But to answer your question a little more specifically, when you're in the foreign service, there are a lot of different things you can do. So maybe you had different answers because you're talking to people that are in different verticals. So there's a management. And if you're a management officer, and I'm going to speak specifically to being overseas, right? The State Department is based in Washington, D.C., so there are a whole bunch of jobs here, but I'll just talk about overseas. If you're a management officer, when we're at our embassies, everything that has to do with management, there are hundreds of jobs, right? Everything from human resources, everything to evaluation, to fixing things, to managing individuals that are focusing on security. Like, there are all different types of verticals with management. When you're dealing with econ or political, you're focusing a lot on the economic situation or the political situation in the country, and you're reporting back to Washington, D.C., the conversations that you've had, or really the political environment, right? So in Argentina, the economic environment is going to be different than in South Africa, right? So you're reporting on what that looks like, and sending that back to Washington, D.C. To inform our decision-making process. When you're working in consular, you're focused a lot on facilitating travel. And with that, it's individuals that are coming to go to school, like at American University, individuals that are traveling for vacation, individuals that are traveling to work in the United States. You're facilitating that process based on the laws, the immigration laws that we have here. So there are a lot of different types of areas, but when you're coming in as a foreign service officer, usually you're a generalist. And when you're a generalist, that means that you can pick a cone that you kind of work towards and go down, but you could also be working in different areas. So you could have a tour as an economic officer where you're strictly reporting on the economic conditions in Windhoek, Namibia, or you can work as a consular officer where you're facilitating travel of H-1B workers from New Delhi to Silicon Valley, right? So you're going to get a lot of answers depending on who you ask and the experiences that they've had. Speaking of that, I mean, I'm working now at the U.S. mission to the United Nations. This is a job that, frankly, I didn't know existed when I entered the Foreign Service. We have a mission in New York, and just how we have missions that are interacting with the country that we're in, our mission in New York is interacting with the United Nations, with over 190 countries, right? And the different challenges and opportunities that are there. So to demystify it fully, you know, I would have to have multiple conversations and really figure out what you're interested in, and we can go deep there. But that's kind of like a general overview of the different areas. I'm not sure if that was helpful.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Okay. So I see Maya and Liam. I think Liam, your hand went up first, but I'd like to pick on Maya. Little misdirection there. How can I help?
Okay. So I was wondering if you could talk about what grad school programs you were in or post-undergrad generally before you went into the Foreign Service.
Sure, great. So when I was going through the application process, I was working with, there's a consortium, it's called APSIA. I'm not sure what maybe American Policy Schools for International Affairs or something like that. American University is part of it. But there are a lot of kind of grad schools that are specifically focused on international affairs and policy. I looked at a few of them. I ended up at Columbia University. That's where I pursued my graduate degree in international affairs. Columbia has a great dual degree program with a couple of schools, with London School of Economics and Hertie, as well as Sciences Po. So I did the dual degree program with Sciences Po in Columbia. But really the process it started online, honestly. And then it started just kind of speaking to people on LinkedIn that had gone to the universities and just kind of saying, hey, how was your experience? And really looking within my network for individuals who may have went through different programs and asking about the various experiences and going from there. But in terms of where did I go, it was Columbia, and how did I get there? It's just talking to people. Liam.
Hi, so I wanted to ask, I'm thinking about going into military service. I was wondering, do you think that would help open any doors, any opportunities into foreign service?
Yeah, so great question. So the short answer is yes. I think that whatever career you would like to pursue, whether it's continuing going into military service or going into military service for a certain amount of time and coming out, the skills that you're going to get from military service are highly sought after for private companies, public companies, and yes, at the State Department. We have a lot of people that are coming from the military that are working in our diplomatic securities, but they're also working as foreign service officers. And they come with a unique set of skills that align greatly with some of the things that that we hold near and dear as a foreign service officer, specifically that representation portion, that reporting portion, that exercising good judgment. All of those things are critical to being able to serve our nation in a diplomatic capacity, and they're all skills that at least the people that I've worked with coming out of the military service have experience doing. Who else do I see? Camila and
Like Alice has a question.
oh, is Alice? Okay, please, Alice.
Hi, Michael. I'm currently working for a political campaign, and I was wondering, how are you able to like be persuasive while still being polite, but still like, you know, getting your point across and getting people to do what you need them to do for you?
Great question. I think if you're working on a political campaign, there may be two ways that they trained you. Maybe one was kind of just providing information, and one was like that conversion aspect, right? And I think you lead with your points, like you lead with the truth, and understanding when you're going in that people are going to make the best decisions for themselves, but really meeting them where they are. And I think a big part of having that conversation, and maybe not going to say persuade or sway someone, but being able to kind of maybe find common ground or mutual ground, or enable people to think different ways, is listening. A lot of people are coming in with, this is the point, this is the truth, this is what makes sense. But when you're able to listen to people, then you'll be able to respond more effectively to some of their concerns, because maybe the facts and figures that are interesting to you may not be what that person cares about, right? It may not be what their experience is. So really listening to what the experience is and kind of building off of that, as opposed to coming in with your own agenda.
Thank you so much.
Other hands. I'm unable to see everyone's hand. So if there's just a hand, just go ahead and unmute yourself or drop it in the chat. Tyler, Sophia, Sam, Rebecca, Nicole, Nicholas, Melody, Matthew Trout, flag in the back. Anyone? Amy, did you have any questions that you wanted to prompt discussion or anything like that?
I think in general, that you've covered kind of these big turning points that we're looking for in Washington semester. I think you've touched on this, but I'm eager even for maybe another couple examples of the way that you have been able to network across so many different sectors when it comes to your background in finance and consulting, and then you are then moving over, I mean, at one point again, starting with a embassy internship, and the way that you've moved through State Department and then other positions. How has networking played a role in helping you to pivot to so many different positions over the years?
Yeah, it's played a great role, and for me personally, the key to that has really been developing real and authentic relationships. For me, when I'm walking into a room, it's not about how many people I'm able to speak with or how many cards I'm able to get and how many emails I'm able to follow up on, but it's really when I'm speaking to people, finding that genuine. Those genuine similarities and commonalities. I have a strong belief that when it comes to people, we have more in common than we do apart. And my job when I'm meeting people is really to kind of find what that commonality is. And I say that because when you're talking about overall networking, a lot of it is by chance. A lot of it is by people calling you and saying, hey, this is something that I have over here, is it something you'd like to look at? Or I'm doing this. I remember when we spoke, is that something that you'd consider? A lot of that is there, right? And really, I think a big part of networking is being open, right? You come in and you say, I want a job and I just want to be in finance. Well, great, but that doesn't mean that when you see the person that's working at USAID, that maybe you shouldn't speak to them, right? It's really being open and understanding that everyone's network is large. And in addition to that, people are doing various things, or there may be things that you didn't think about. So really being open to having those conversations, really being open to creating and building on authentic relationships, and following your passion, whatever you're interested in. I guarantee all of you that if there's something that you're passionate about or you have a slight interest in, there's someone on this call that can at least, if they don't know about it, if they can't get you a job, they can at least call or email one person that knows a little bit more, right? So being vocal about those things that you're passionate about, and people are, you'd be surprised that people are happy to help. Last year, when I had a chance to speak with individuals with this at this event, and I'll do it today, I put my personal email in the chat. And I said to everyone, if anyone needs anything, please feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk. There. If anyone needs anything, I'm happy to talk, reach out. One person reached out, like 40 people on the call, right? That person reached out. We've been talking for over 2 years. We're working on getting him an internship, fellowship. He went to grad school in Paris. All of these experiences that we're talking through. Now he's living in New York and he's interested in USUN. So we met by the USUN 3 days ago from this call. So it's really being able to kind of follow up and just share, hey, I'm interested in this, or hey, you said something that intrigued me, and taking the opportunity to kind of build on those relationships. That's someone who until a few days ago I had never met. He asked a question on this forum. We stayed in touch via email and WhatsApp and text. And he's been able to kind of navigate his career and his next few steps as a result of individuals I've connected him with or conversations that we've had. And I opened that same invitation to all of you. Feel free to reach out if there's something you're interested in or something you want to do, because at the very least, I'm happy to connect you with someone else who may know a little more. So when it comes to networking, kind of moving across different sectors, it's really figuring out what you want and then being open to kind of taking that first step and reaching out.
That's such inspiring advice. What I love to hear from you, Michael, is your kind of technical know-how when it comes to how you've navigated your field in international diplomacy and finance, and then also taking it to the next level when it comes to paying it forward and giving back to others. It's truly inspiring to hear your words and hear the advice that you're giving to students. So thank you so very much. Any closing remarks from students or any final questions as we I know Michael told me he has a full schedule today. I don't want to press his schedule too much.
Is Sam at the Portrait Art Gallery?
Maybe.
That's my favorite museum, well, other than the African American Smithsonian. Yeah, great place to study. Great lighting in there. Any last minute questions? Okay, Garrett.
Yeah, just one quick one. So I'm also interested in international affairs. My general topic of interest is conflict prevention and like conflict negotiations. But often, a lot of time, you'll meet people in the field who have regional expertise. They'll pick a specific region. So for someone who wants to focus more topically than regionally, where would you recommend finding the place to start with networking, or what kind of people I should network with? Because it's been hard to find someone focused on that topic specifically rather than someone who's specifically focused on a region.
Yep, you're absolutely right. That's a great question. I think one place you can start is with your professors. There are a lot of great professors in the Washington semester program and AU in general that focus on conflict prevention, peace stabilization efforts, and things like that. So that's one area to start with. Think tanks, great place to start with. Government officials that work on that, local officials that work on these different type of functional and topical issues. There's always opportunity to start conversations there. And when you're working, whether it's specifically when State Department, when you're working on the civil side or foreign service side, as I mentioned, a lot of it is general, but once you're in there, you develop expertise, language, and regional, but a lot of that is functional as well. There are functional offices that deal with a whole bunch of regions, but are focused on a certain function. So you have the opportunity to kind of get involved with that in the government and outside of the government as well. But I would start with think tanks. I would start with your professors, and that's a good starting place here in DC or where you are. I'm not going to be able to take all the questions, but I did. Let me make sure it's to everyone. That's my personal email. Anyone has any follow-up questions, didn't get a chance to ask, feel free to reach out. Feel free to stay in touch. I'm happy to engage with you and be able to kind of support you moving forward. You're in an absolutely extraordinary program with even more extraordinary staff. I think I saw Donna on the call, Ms. Chapman on the call there. She has been amazing and been a mentor and supporter since I was in the program. And there are just people like that that are going to always support you and wish you well. Stay connected with one another and with the staff. And I'm always here to answer any questions that you may have moving forward as well.